So I run the Harriet Tubman Museum and Education Center in Cambridge, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore, not Cambridge, Massachusetts. People often say, confuse the two. With a gentleman named Bill Jarman. Bill Jarman is in his 80s, I'm in my late 60s, and we're still telling the story about Harriet Tubman, and we'll continue. But I got there a very interesting way. As I told you, 2020 was a very scary time for me. I felt we were dealing with a pandemic, but we were also dealing with the killing of young men and women. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, long list of people. And I've lived a very fortuitous life. In the DC area, I had a company that I turned over to my son, and we developed housing co-ops. We purchased buildings in the 80s and created co-ops for families. And so those families are wealthy now. They're sitting on buildings that are worth millions of dollars, and I'm very proud of that. So I retired from that. But the night I watched the coverage of George Floyd, it just paralyzed me. And I started crying, like George Floyd was my brother, my cousin, all right? And in that moment, on my bookcase, and I got tons of books. I'm a big, big reader. Both my husband and I read a lot, which is a dying art that I hope we can revive. But a book that my father had given me when I was 10, I still have it. My father was an amazing human being. I didn't get dolls when I was a little girl. I got books and toys. And on my 10th birthday, I got this book, and it's called The Runaway Slave, about Harriet Tubman. So along with that book, I also got a kaleidoscope. So imagine this book about Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad and slavery, and this kaleidoscope that brings in the light. I still have the kaleidoscope too. It's kind of tattered now. But anyway, I realized that book started glowing. I went over and picked it up, and I thought, oh my God, this is a sign that the only way for me to feel free and proud to be black in America is to do what Harriet Tubman did. So that was on a Thursday night. Friday morning, I jumped in my car. You could get to Cambridge in about 15 minutes because there were no cars. You could have walked down the middle of Route 50. No one was moving around. And I got to Cambridge, and I met Bill Jarman. And he sat with me, and we talked about the journey of Harriet Tubman, which is it's still the journey as I opened saying. And I decided, you know what? I got to do what she did. I have to walk the Underground Railroad. So in September 2020, along with 7 other women, no men, I put out a post on Facebook. I got to tell you, Facebook is my go-to. That's how I connect with people, irregardless of how people feel about the platform. It's been a hugely successful way for me to connect and be able to tell this story. But anyway, I put out a post. I said, does anyone want to walk the Underground Railroad with me? Because nobody was working, right? You're teleworking, everything was shut down. 20 women responded, no men. I don't know why. But anyway, after I put them through my first training test, there's an area here called Great Falls. Do any of you know Great Falls? I took these very professional women, very polished women, and I said, if we're going to do this thing, we have to build our core. Long distance walking, certainly you have to have good shoes, but you have to build your core. So I took them on the Billy Goat Trail. The Billy Goat Trail, like a billy goat, you got to climb up and you go down and you climb up over rocky areas. 3 of those women who were attorneys, they said, we ought to sue you. I said, why do you want to sue me? This is not walking the Underground Railroad. I said, I'm preparing you for a walk of your lifetime. So you got to be mentally and physically prepared to do this. Well, needless to say, those ladies didn't come with me. And that number 20 dwindled to 7. So in 2020, September, we walked for 8 days from the Brodus Plantation in Cambridge, Maryland, to Philadelphia. And we knocked on William Still's door. And for those of you who may not know the story, and I can talk endlessly. Of course, I'm going to end this talk by inviting all of you to come to the museum, and I can tell you the story in depth, but he was the father of the Underground Railroad and wrote the book, The Underground Railroad, documenting stories of the people who had traversed it to get to freedom above the Mason-Dixon line. So that changed me. Oh my God, I was like born again, following the light. So let me just show you some of my slides. You got my name. And I majored in business, not museum, not history, not any curation. I just, so now I'm doing this thing and I do it with great joy. And I'm doggone good at it, because I work at it. I'm very passionate about it. But it was the North Star And I mean, so appropriately named this organization, the North Star, the Polaris, and my topic is Polaris. It's a continuing journey, but it's to tell of the constellations, the Big Dipper and Little Dipper. It's a constellation that remains all the time, and it's the star, Polaris, or the North Star, was the guiding light for those enslaved, and they had to use it. It was their compass. They didn't have GPS. That was their GPS to walk to freedom. And so after I did that walk, we walked for 8 days, 20 miles a day, 158 miles. It changed me. And I realized, and I'm a senior citizen, and I did this thing when I was in my mid-60s, and so now I'm in my later 60s, feeling more energized than ever. And I'm energized around the very notion of what freedom means. And the first thing you have to do in order to attain it, as I learned from Harriet Tubman, putting one foot in front of the other. As you're doing that, you are freeing your mind. And you are rethinking how you fit in this galaxy, following the North Star. So after I did that walk, the museum said, well, you know, if you've got time to walk, you may as well come and run the museum. I said, well, I don't know anything about running a museum, but I do, as we all do. I have attached myself to history because we are history. The moment we walk out that door, what we did in here is history. And it's what we do in the moment and how we take it forward that shapes us and molds us and makes us leaders to lead people to freedom. And that's what Harriet Tubman did. So after I decided to join the museum, I went down to Cambridge, my husband and I, we bought a place there, we call it Camp Harriet. You come to Camp Harriet, and if you want to spend the weekend and walk the Underground Railroad with me, that's what we'll do. But I found that telling history, so we do it in two ways. I talk, as you can see, I love talking, and I didn't even realize I love talking, but I figure if people want to listen, I'll tell them what they want to hear. But we do it through music. We tell the history of Harriet Tubman and those enslaved for over 256 years in the United States through music. You see, they traversed this Underground Railroad using code. The Underground Railroad was a system of people, locations, and code. It went as far south as Mexico, north to Canada, west to Utah. And they used these magnificent ways that were innate to our very culture, music, the sounds that they brought when they were put on those slave ships, shackled at their wrists and ankles, stowed on a slave ship like a book on a bookcase. They used the consoling sounds of the environment to endure that journey through the Middle Passage to come here to be enslaved in the United States. So when I tell the story, I tell it that way. So now that my husband is here playing the banjo, I wasn't sure we were going to do the music, but I think it's absolutely the right thing to do with this group. It's a small, intimate group. The banjo is an African-inspired instrument. Somehow it got lost in translation. But know the origins. Know that the sounds that the enslaved people brought here evolved. The humming evolved into the code songs, the Negro spirituals, blues, jazz, contemporary, hip-hop, rap, and it continues to evolve. Know that that is something that our ancestors brought here. It's something that guides us, and it attaches us to many things, and I think if we use music, if we use sound to teach our communities, they'll get it a lot better because it's something that's very innate to their very being. So having said that, I'll just share a little bit of our musical journey. Can we hear David? All right. This is not, I had prepared notes, but I'm not going to use them, all right? I'm just going to do what I do. So when we think about the North Star, Polaris, the constellation that guided our ancestors to freedom, and when I talk about freedom, it is such a holistic term, it means so many things. I've taken the word freedom, I've made it an acronym, and it's what guides me every day. Are we ready for freedom? So we know that freedom is spelled F-R-E-E-D-O-M. And I've taken that word and I've made it my guiding slogan. Freedom! release, everlasting, everyone, daring, obliging, marching on. We're walking with Harriet to freedom, to freedom. We're walking with Harriet to freedom, to freedom. And when we step across the line, we're gonna turn back and bring you along, 'cause we're walking with Harriet to freedom. My sisters are walking, my brothers are walking. We're marching along right now. And when we step across the line, we start a mighty movement, because freedom, freedom belongs to us. We can't stop, we can't stop, we can't stop, no, we can't stop. We're on a mission. We gotta sing our song, and when we step across the line, we're gonna turn back and bring you along, 'cause we're walking with Harriet to freedom. We're walking with Harriet, clap with me, to freedom, to freedom. We're walking with Harriet to freedom, to freedom. And when we step across the line, we start a mighty movement, because freedom, freedom belongs to us, belongs to us, belongs to us. So, thank you so much. Thank you for participating with that, with me, because I think we really underestimate the term. We take it for granted and know that once we free our minds, what's the song? The rest will follow. So I found Harriet Tubman. We've known about her all of our lives, but I want you to look at her a little differently. And I hope that when you connect history, I want you to look at history a little bit differently, because we've not been told history correctly. But the one thing that we can be certain that it was a time before us, and we always learn from things that happened before. So we must attach ourselves to the importance of this history. So Harriet Tubman, born 1822, was as a slave. Her grandmother was brought from the west coast of Africa in Ghana, put on a slave ship, and made to endure a journey, coming from a free place and enslaved. Now, Harriet Tubman had the benefit of knowing her grandmother. And when you know your grandmother and she tells you stuff, you better listen, because she knows what she's talking about. So she told Harriet, you know what? I was a free person. I was captured, and I was put at the belly of a slave ship and brought to this country, a country I've never seen, climate I've never endured, people I've never seen, and a language I've never heard, but she survived. And she told Harriet, and I'm paraphrasing, there's so many books you can read about this, but Sarah Bradford was one of the few people that actually interviewed Harriet Tubman. So things I'm telling you are things that came from her mouth that I'm paraphrasing. But when we think about what molded her, it was her grandmother first. Her grandmother told her, you're free, because if you think free, then you're going to be free. That was number one. Her father, Benjamin Ross, was a boat builder. So he knew the environment, he knew the land, he knew the sky. He had his internal compass. He was the GPS. Her mother, Old Rit, was a fearless defender of her children. And then so that's four, that's three things that shaped her. And then she's walking among African Americans that were free. 50% of the African Americans living on the Eastern Shore during the time of Harriet Tubman were free. That may be a little known fact. So the reason the Underground Railroad was so hugely successful, it was because of the free African Americans. They helped guide the others to freedom. So when we think about what molded her, and then the last thing that's worth noting, she was a middle child. Are there any middle children? All right, I got it. What's it like being a middle child?
Oh, we're the quiet four. We're the quiet
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What about you?
The wise one.
The wise one. Yep. Was there someone else in the back? You all got it. You all knew Harriet. I'm a middle child. And the one word that my mother used for me, and I read so many books about Tubman, I was obstinate. All right, I knew what was going on because I had involved myself with my environment very early. And one of the things Harriet Tubman talks about, and as she told Sarah Bradford, she said, I was largely left alone. I was in the middle. My mother was working the house with my sisters. My brother was working the field, and I was left alone to figure things out. She talked about frequently running in the environment, and these pictures are locations on the Eastern Shore. They're absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful environment. The landscape has remained unchanged since she was there. So imagine walking about. Now, when she's a little girl, not yet traumatized by the system of slavery, this is what she's dealing with. Imagine how your mind grows, how your thoughts develop if you're in a pure natural environment. So this is what raised her. She told Sarah Bradford that the boogeyman was my enslaver, but my friends were the environment. Imagine having friends like these, the sky, the trees, the water, the land. Imagine that being what develops you. I mean, you were fearless, and that's what she became. So after training, I went down and I trained and I absorbed all of this. I was just prepared to walk the Underground Railroad. It became effortless for me because it was symbolic of so many things. As we walked each day, we were walking off our woes. We were understanding who we really were as women. We were finding our passion. And the other thing I've learned to study is metaphysics. Metaphysicians believe that the things that you're born with your passion. And there's something very magical about walking in the environment, taking out the ear pods, all that artificial stuff, and just communing with nature. You find your purpose. And I found it very late as a senior citizen, a card-carrying member. I've got my Medicare card, you understand? But I found my purpose in putting one foot in front of the other. I do it every day. We do it every day. But I want you to realize what you're doing when you're walking. You're walking forward, not backward. You're walking to something. And it's a metaphor for how our lives should be, walking towards something, developing goals, making positive influences on people. But it's all going forward. And that's what Harriet Tubman did. So when we think about slavery, it was horrific indeed. But think about what she did to put that system of slavery behind her. So at our museum, our little museum, we are the original African American museum for Harriet Tubman. There's a big state park there. They got $28 million, but our museum got $0. But I'm not deterred by that because we are the force. I tell people when you come to our museum, we're going to talk about history, but we're going to talk about life because we have to attach ourselves to the past in order to go forward. So I talk to you. You become my friends, all right, because I think that we have a kinship because our goal should be the same. And that's to constantly move forward, developing good environments for ourselves and our communities. And it starts first with self-love. That's the other thing that Harriet Tubman did. She had to love herself first because the system of slavery was horrific. So how does one leave that without first developing self-love? The second one is once you develop self-love, then you can have love for other people. And you become less judgmental. And you realize once you've tapped into your purpose, that your purpose, really our purpose here is to realize our full potential. And when we do that, then we can pass it on, which is what she did. So in the case of Harriet Tubman, her full potential was first walking to freedom and then turning back to bring someone else along. By the time the Civil War broke out, over 100,000 men, women, and children had traversed this Underground Railroad going south to Mexico, north to Canada. But she is the only one that we know about that came back. So this is our responsibility. When we talk about NorthStar GIS and what we should be doing, it's tapping into our communities and imparting to them the things that we learn along the way. So those of us who decide to realize our full potential, we have a responsibility to pass it on. So at the museum, I've come up with something called We Walk with Harriet. And every Thursday and Friday and Saturday, we're only open 3 days a week, people pay to walk with me as I walk along the Underground Railroad. It is the most astonishing thing. I've got big groups, little groups, homeschool groups, classes, professors come out, authors come out to listen to me. Now, I majored in business. I didn't major in history. I don't have any initials behind my name. So sometimes I think, well, God, I don't know if these people want to hear from me. But I speak with joy, and I speak with passion and courage. And I realize that if you encompass those three virtues, people will listen to you because you've got something to say. I say it with, and it's honest and joyful. So when I'm taking these people, and these are just pictures of some of the groups, as of 2 days ago, I have done 150 walks just in 2024 along the Underground Railroad. Now these are short walks, thank you. They're short walks, they can be 2 miles, 3 miles, but I can get a whole lot of information to people in that amount of time. But the most important thing about the way we are doing this is they're learning history, and I tell them, you are walking on the blood-soaked grounds of the ancestors, and they are here with you. And if you absorb that, the history will be with you forever. So we'll do another code song. David goes with me. We got the banjo. We've got our T-shirts going on. We are following the drinking gourd. So if I go back to that slide, Follow the Drinking Gourd was a code song. They had many ways of communicating, but this music thing is us, man, and embrace it. It's just so powerful. They developed lyrics that were later stolen and copywritten. I won't go into that, but know that these songs come from the ancestors. But they knew Benjamin Ross was a boat builder and a navigator, and they knew that the North Star, by following that guiding bright light in the sky, that was the way to get to freedom, to get above the Mason-Dixon line, to go north. So it goes like this. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is waiting just to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is waiting just to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Come on and follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is waiting just to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. So I just want to, I'm probably running out of time, but I sort of looked up the definition of North Star, the North Star Polaris. And these are just some of the concepts that, these are all Google searches, so I'm always searching different sources. And you got to search different sources, but really you got to go and read. But I'm talking to the choir here, so I'll reserve that from groups that I know are not doing much reading. But when we think about the North Star and we think about guidance and direction, and you have to promise me when you go out in the winter sky tonight, look up. And I want you to look at that brightest star. It's the tail of the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. It's bright, and it's always twinkling. And I want you to just get lost. Let that twinkling pull you in, and you're going to start to think differently and feel differently. But if you are in the northern hemisphere and you can figure out your direction, you can do that by finding the North Star, because when you're looking up, you're going north, all right? For thousands of years, it has been a survival tool for navigators in the darkest of nights. It was the compass. So if you think about a metaphor and think about a holistic way of thinking, being in the darkness, but finding the light. The star is associated with life's purpose, heart's true desires, and unchangeable ideals to follow in your own life. As we look within ourselves, we can discover and develop the gifts that we already have in achieving our full potential. Consistency. It has been used as a metaphor for consistency that guides you to stay on course. Freedom and inspiration and hope. The enslaved people allowed the star to guide them, a continuous connection to freedom. The sailors used it. Finding the North Star. It's the mark that is at the end of the handle of the dipper, that star at the top. The North Star can be seen everywhere at night in the northern sky. So when we think about communities, leading our communities, and now ever more, do we have to come together? Oh my gosh, because we have a big task in front of us. Let us follow the North Star. Let us think about Polaris. Use it as a metaphor in your life. Let it be the light that shines, that gives you the kind of passion you need to move forward as an individual and help our communities move forward as well. So I'll end with that. David, we're going to sing our last little song. Is this Love Will Guide Us? Love, of course, the universal language. What is that you were playing? Huh? Oh, Hush. Oh, gosh. He wants me to do Hush. I'll end with Hush. There were a ton of code songs. A lot of these songs we learned in church, but we'll end with this one. It's called Hush. When Harriet Tubman had to come and get her brothers, they had to rendezvous at the Mount Pleasant Cemetery in 1854. And so they had to be quiet in the cemetery, right? They didn't want their enslavers to know where they were. And the brother came late because his wife was having a baby and he didn't want to leave her, so they had to wait for him. She gave birth to that child, wrapped that child up, and joined the walk to freedom. Can you imagine that? I was beat up for about a month before after having my daughter. But this is one of the songs, and if you know it, join in. Somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, my Lord, oh, my Lord. What shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, my Lord, oh, my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? So what shall we do? We should walk proud, walk tall, strong, be free, and influence our communities. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, my Lord, oh, my Lord, what shall I do? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, just astounding experience. And I want y'all to know that that was still just a taste just a taste of what you can experience at the Harriet Tubman Museum and Educational Center. Just a taste. So we're gonna take a small break and get set up for the next